Hello everyone, and welcome back to another remote sensing lecture video. And in this lecture video, I want to take some time to sort of talk about something that is going to tie together everything that we've talked about so far, ranging from the remote sensing data structure, the idea of different color regions and wavelengths, and the idea of spectral response curves. It's going to tie all of that together. And what we're going to talk about is this thing called a data enhancement. So data enhancement, right, kind of like the name implies, is that we're going to do things to the data that improve our ability to extract information from imagery. So these are things we can do to help us extract information from imagery. Right? Because at the end of the day, that really is the point of remote sensing. Regardless of what type of imagery you're using, regardless of what you're trying to actually detect, at the end of the day, you're just trying to extract information. And data enhancements are things that we can do that will help us achieve that goal. And so we're going to break data enhancements up into two sort of categories. The first category are what are called visual enhancements. Right, visual enhancements, I'm going to put this in all caps and underline here, do not change the underlying data. Now, when we talk about visual enhancements, you may sort of think that they're changing the underlying data, but when we talk about the second category and give some examples, you will hopefully see that there's a big difference in terms of what visual enhancements do. So visual enhancements include things like contrast stretching, and again, if these terms don't make sense now, we're going to go through all of this in a lot more detail. This is just sort of overview of what we're planning to talk about. So contrast stretching, right, controls how we map the pixel values to display values. And then band assignment. And band assignment is how we decide which bands, and by extension, what wavelength regions, right? Because a band is just a wavelength region in remote sensing. How we decide which bands to use in each display channel. And again, if you don't know what display values are, what display channels are, we're going to talk a lot more about these in future videos, so don't get too hung up on the specific terminology right now. So that's visual enhancements. They do not change the underlying data, right? We're choosing how do we put the display values, and we're choosing which bands do we use, but we're not actually changing anything. The second are what are called data transformations. And there are a lot of data transformations. There are hundreds of different potential data transformations. We're only going to talk about one specific example because data transformations tend to use a lot more math, and they're sometimes a little more tricky to interpret. So we're going to leave most of the data transformations for other courses, but we're just going to briefly talk about the most common example. But basically what data transformations do is they actually calculate or generate new data given existing data. Right, or put another way, right, data transformations do actually change the underlying data. And one of the examples that we're going to talk about, and probably one of the most common examples of this, are indices. And indices are just mathematical relationships using two or more bands. And again, we're going to go through a couple of examples of indices in another video. But just again, the key takeaway from this is there's two different types of data enhancements. There's visual enhancements and data transformations. Visual enhancements control the way we see the data, but don't actually change it. And then data transformations actually calculate new data, right? They change pixel values. So hopefully that makes sense. And as always, please reach out. Thank you.